Here's a hard truth most men don't want to hear. The more you do for women, the less it often works. You were taught that effort equals value, that if you try harder, give more, and invest deeper, you'll be appreciated and chosen. But in dating, that logic quietly breaks down. A large portion of what you do doesn't create attraction at all. In fact, it often does the opposite. Roughly 80% of your time, energy, and emotional investment produces almost no real return. And the dangerous part is this. The more you stay stuck in that wrong 80%, the more control you lose over your confidence, your frame, and the relationship itself. So the real question isn't how to do more. It's this. What is the 20% that actually matters? This video isn't about pleasing women or performing better in relationships. It's about efficiency, self-respect, and learning how to direct your energy where it actually counts. By the end, you'll know which behaviors are worth keeping and which ones you need to stop immediately if you want attraction to grow instead of fade. If you value clear thinking and no-nonsense insight, take a moment to like this video and subscribe. Now let's break down what most men get wrong and what actually works. Most men grow up with a simple rule drilled into their heads. If you try harder, you become more valuable. Work harder at school, grind harder at your job, put in more effort, and results will follow. In many areas of life, that rule works, but in dating, it often backfires. When it comes to women, effort does not automatically translate into attraction. In fact, excessive effort can quietly erode it. When a man gives too much too early, overextends himself, or constantly sacrifices his own needs to keep a relationship afloat, he isn't signaling strength or commitment. He's signaling imbalance. Think about what happens when you do too much. You text first every time. You plan everything. You adjust your schedule, your opinions, even your boundaries to keep things smooth. None of these actions feel wrong in the moment. They feel responsible. They feel caring. But over time, they place you in a lower position without you realizing it. You become the one chasing stability instead of being someone she wants to move toward. This is where most men get it wrong. They assume the problem is that they're not doing enough, not saying enough, not proving enough. So they double down. More effort, more giving, more emotional investment. And the result is confusion, frustration, and a slow drop in attraction. The uncomfortable truth is this. The issue was never your worth. It wasn't that you weren't good enough. It was that your energy was misdirected. You were investing heavily in behaviors that don't build attraction, while neglecting the small number of actions that actually do. The 80-20 rule is simple, but uncomfortable. In almost every area of life, a small percentage of inputs creates the majority of results. The same principle applies to relationships, whether men like it or not. Most of what you do has little effect. A small fraction of what you do carries almost all the emotional weight. In dating, this means not every action lands the same way. Not every gesture is felt. Not every sacrifice is noticed. You can spend hours planning, texting, explaining, and reassuring, yet none of it may register in the way you expect. Attraction doesn't measure total effort. It responds to impact. This is where many men get confused. They assume that attraction is cumulative, that if they stack enough good actions, something has to stick. But women don't experience relationships like a spreadsheet. They respond to moments, tone, timing, how you make them feel in specific interactions, not how much energy you've poured in overall. Picture this difference. You plan an elaborate date, stress over every detail, and try to impress at every step. She appreciates it, maybe even enjoys it. But what lingers isn't the restaurant or the plan. What stays with her is how you listened when she talked about something personal, or how relaxed and grounded you were in a quiet moment, or how you made her laugh without trying to perform. Those moments are part of the 20%. They carry disproportionate weight. The rest is background noise. Attraction grows from the right action at the right time. A calm presence when emotions rise. A clear boundary when things get unclear. A genuine response instead of a rehearsed one. When those moments hit, they do more than a dozen well-intentioned efforts that miss the mark. Understanding this changes the game. It shifts the focus away from doing more and toward doing what actually matters. Most men don't waste the wrong 80% because they're careless. They do it because they're operating on beliefs that sound reasonable, even noble. The first belief is simple. If you do more, you'll be loved more. Effort feels like insurance. The harder you try, the safer the connection should be. But attraction doesn't work on effort-based guarantees. The second belief is sacrifice. Many men are taught that giving things up proves seriousness and maturity. So they compromise early. They swallow discomfort. They ignore signals that something feels off. They tell themselves that being patient and selfless will eventually be rewarded. What they don't realize is that premature sacrifice often removes tension, polarity, and desire from the dynamic. The third belief is constant self-proof. Instead of letting attraction build naturally, men feel pressure to justify their value. They explain themselves. They overcommunicate intentions. They try to show they're different, reliable, and emotionally available at all times. This turns the relationship into a performance, not an interaction. Underneath these beliefs sit two deeper fears: the fear of losing her, and the fear of not being enough. When those fears take over, men don't act from clarity, they act from urgency. Every message feels important, every silence feels threatening. Every small shift in her mood triggers more effort instead of reflection. Over time, this creates predictable consequences. First comes exhaustion. You're always on, always giving, always adjusting. Then comes resentment. You feel like you're investing more than you're receiving, but you don't know how to stop. Finally, attraction fades. Not because you did something wrong, but because the dynamic lost balance. This is the trap of the wrong 80%. It looks like commitment, but it's driven by insecurity. It feels productive, but it drains energy. And the more you stay in it, the harder it becomes to recognize which actions actually matter. Breaking this cycle doesn't require becoming cold or distant. It requires seeing clearly. Understanding why you're doing what you're doing is the first step toward redirecting your energy to the small set of behaviors that actually move things forward. If the 80-20 rule is real, the next question becomes unavoidable. How do you figure out which 20% actually matters to her? Not to women in general, not to what dating advice says should work, to the woman you're dealing with right now. The answer isn't guessing, it's paying attention. The first thing to watch is her emotional reactions, not her words. People often say polite, safe things. Reactions are harder to fake. Notice when her energy shifts, when she becomes more engaged, when she relaxes, laughs more freely, or leans in. Those moments tell you far more than compliments or thank you messages ever will. Second, listen closely to both praise and frustration. When she says she appreciates something, don't brush it off. When she complains, don't get defensive. Both are signals. If she says she feels most connected when you make time without rushing, presence may be part of your 20%. If she repeatedly mentions not feeling heard, no amount of planning or gifting will compensate for that gap. Third, prioritize quality over quantity. Many men assume consistency means frequency. It doesn't. One thoughtful interaction that shows awareness and intention often outweighs 10 empty check-ins. Attraction responds to depth, not volume. The right action, done well, creates momentum. Repeated noise creates fatigue. Fourth, pay attention to when she initiates. When does she reach out first? When does she suggest seeing you? When does she open up emotionally without being prompted? These moments are especially revealing because initiative usually follows emotional reward. If she becomes more affectionate after deep conversations, that depth is part of the 20%. If she engages more after shared experiences, presence matters more than constant communication. Finally, repeat what works. This sounds obvious, but most men ignore it. They keep trying new strategies instead of refining the ones that already create results. Think of the relationship as feedback, not a test you're trying to pass. Patterns will emerge if you let them. The key is this: her 20% is personal. It can't be copied from someone else's experience. When you stop chasing advice and start observing reality, your actions become calmer, more effective, and far less exhausting. While every woman has her own emotional priorities, there are patterns that show up again and again. Certain behaviors tend to carry disproportionate weight no matter who you're dealing with. These are not tricks or tactics. They're signals of stability, presence, and self-respect. And for most men, they form the core of the 20% that actually works. The first is consistency, in the right sense of the word. Not constant availability, not messaging all day. Consistency means your words and actions align over time. You show up when you say you will. You don't disappear and reappear based on mood or fear. This creates a sense of safety without killing attraction because it's grounded, not needy. Second is attention to detail. Remembering small things matters more than big gestures. A preference she mentioned in passing. A moment that was important to her. This isn't about impressing. It's about awareness. It signals that you're present, not just trying to perform a role. Third is authenticity. Many men lose attraction by trying to become what they think she wants. They soften opinions, exaggerate confidence, or hide uncertainty. But forced confidence is easy to sense. Authenticity creates trust because it's stable. When your behavior feels natural, it removes tension and invites connection. Fourth is emotional presence. This is where many men miss the mark. Being emotionally present means listening without interrupting, validating without fixing, and staying grounded when emotions rise. It's not about being emotional. It's about being available without being overwhelmed. This balance is rare, and it's deeply attractive. Finally, physical affection that matches her energy. Some women want closeness. Others prefer subtlety. The key is responsiveness. When physical touch aligns with comfort and timing, it builds intimacy. When it ignores signals, it erodes it. None of these behaviors are flashy. That's why many men overlook them. But together, they communicate strength, awareness, and control. Not control over her, but control over yourself. And that is what attraction responds to most consistently. Not everything that feels caring is helpful. Some of the behaviors men believe are strengthening a relationship are actually weakening it. This is the dangerous side of the 80%. The actions that cost you energy, clarity, and attraction while giving very little back. One of the most common is over-texting. Constant updates, unnecessary explanations, checking in out of habit instead of intention. On the surface, it looks like interest, but underneath, it often communicates anxiety. It shifts the dynamic from connection to monitoring. Instead of creating space for anticipation, it fills every quiet moment with noise. Another is over-planning. Some men believe attraction comes from perfect execution. Every date is optimized. Every interaction is carefully engineered. But attraction isn't built through logistics. When everything is planned to death, there's no room for spontaneity, presence, or emotional flow. What started as effort slowly becomes pressure. Then there's overgiving. This one is subtle because it's socially praised. Paying more, doing more favors, offering more emotional labor than the relationship has earned. Overgiving isn't generosity, it's imbalance. And imbalance creates discomfort, even if no one says it out loud. Attraction needs mutual movement, not one-sided investment. Cutting these behaviors doesn't mean becoming distant or cold. It means becoming selective. When you remove actions that are driven by fear or insecurity, you free up energy for the few behaviors that actually matter. You stop reacting and start choosing. This is where self-respect enters the equation. A man who values his time, attention, and emotional bandwidth naturally becomes more grounded. He doesn't chase clarity. He creates it. He doesn't flood the connection. He lets it breathe. The wrong 80% keeps you busy, but ineffective. Letting it go doesn't reduce connection. It sharpens it. When you focus on what truly counts, the relationship feels lighter, more balanced, and far more alive. The 80-20 rule isn't just about improving your results with women. It's about changing how you relate to your own energy. Once you see that a small number of actions create most of the emotional impact, you start asking better questions, not about how to give more, but about when to continue and when to stop. This shift requires honesty. Instead of measuring effort, you begin to measure response. Is the energy you put in being met with engagement, curiosity, and reciprocity? Or are you constantly pushing, initiating, and adjusting just to keep things moving? Attraction doesn't grow from pursuit alone. It grows from balance. Knowing when to continue means recognizing when your presence is valued. Conversations feel mutual. Plans come together without force. There's space for silence without anxiety. In these moments, investing more makes sense because the connection expands naturally. Knowing when to stop is just as important. If interest is inconsistent, communication feels one-sided, or effort is met with indifference, more investment won't fix it. It will only deepen the imbalance. Walking away from these situations isn't failure, it's clarity. This is where many men hesitate. Letting go feels like loss. But the truth is, staying in the wrong dynamic costs far more over time. Energy spent chasing uncertain validation is energy taken away from your own stability and growth. Attraction responds to selectivity. When you stop offering everything to everyone, your time and attention gain weight. You become less reactive, more centered, and more intentional. This doesn't make you rigid. It makes you grounded. The 80-20 mindset turns dating from a constant effort into a deliberate choice. And that choice, made consistently, is what puts you back in control. Before moving forward, there's a moment worth sitting with. Not to analyze, not to fix, just to notice. If you're honest with yourself, you already know where your energy has been going. You can feel it. The effort that drains you. The actions that feel heavy instead of clean. Ask yourself this. Which part of your dating life has you stuck in the wrong 80%? Is it the constant reaching out, hoping for reassurance? Is it staying in situations where interest feels uneven, telling yourself things will change if you just try a little harder? Or is it ignoring your own boundaries because walking away feels harder than holding on? Now flip the question. Think of a moment that actually worked. A time when you didn't overthink. When you were present, grounded, and not chasing an outcome. The energy was different, lighter, more natural. That moment wasn't an accident. It came from the right 20%. This is the choice in front of you. Not between caring and not caring, but between reacting and choosing. One behavior to let go of, one behavior to keep. Cutting one habit that's been costing you self-respect. Reinforcing one action that aligns with who you are when you're at your best. Nothing changes overnight, but clarity changes direction. When you stop pouring energy into what doesn't respond, you create space. And in that space, the right dynamics have room to grow. Hold on to that awareness. It's what everything else builds on. At its core, this isn't about doing less because you don't care. It's about doing less of what doesn't work, so what does work can finally have weight. In dating, more effort doesn't automatically mean more attraction. Often, it means the opposite. When everything is given equal energy, nothing stands out. The 80-20 rule brings things back into focus. A small number of actions, done with intention, timing, and self-respect, create most of the emotional impact. The rest only drains you. When you understand that, dating stops feeling like a performance and starts feeling like a choice. This isn't a manipulation tactic. It's not about withholding or playing games. It's about alignment. When your actions match your values and your energy is invested where it's actually reciprocated, attraction becomes a byproduct, not something you chase. Less, but correct, is stronger than more, but desperate. Calm beats effort, clarity beats sacrifice, and self-respect always outlasts approval-seeking. So here's a simple challenge. Identify one behavior you're ready to stop, the habit that keeps you stuck in the wrong 80%. Then identify one behavior you'll keep, the action that reflects the man you are when you're grounded and in control. Write both of them in the comments. Making it conscious is the first step to changing it. If this perspective resonated with you, support the channel by liking the video and sharing it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe if you want more direct, no-nonsense insight on relationships, confidence, and masculine clarity. Choose your energy carefully. When you do, everything else starts to fall into place.